Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and what a weekend we have ahead of us here at Spa, because not just Charles Leclerc but also championship rival Max Verstappen will take engine penalties this weekend that will send them to the back of the grid. 4 other drivers though apparently going to do the same thing. That means that Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen have an incentive to go deep in qualifying tomorrow to try and qualify as far forward as they can and potentially not take too severe of a penalty here. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Got like 100 new subs yesterday, love to see it. Let's keep on going. Big news of the day though, if you guys haven't seen this already, is that Audi have confirmed they are planning to join Formula 1 in 2026. Now they have effectively applied to be an engine manufacturer for 2026, as with Porsche that we expect to partner up with Red Bull. Now we believe Audi are planning to buy 75% of Sauber, currently partnered with Alfa Romeo of course. Now well, whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But Audi actually went out, I guess this is a marketing stunt really, but they actually designed their own livery. You can see the livery right here. Looks honestly kind of nice. This is kind of the concept that they unveiled. Now, this car probably will never actually see the light of day, but if they do take over Sauber, then, you know, this could be what the car might look like in a few years' time. But they've only announced as yet they will be an engine manufacturer, but we believe they were, well, they plan to be a little bit more than that. But certainly interesting and good for Formula 1 that the likes of Audi and Porsche are getting involved, and it certainly should make things more competitive. Apparently Audi have said they've already been working on their 2026 engine since about March this year, so that goes to show they are serious about contending. And the other funny thing is there's been a bit of shade being thrown actually between Audi and also Mercedes, like of course German brands, but Mercedes is effectively like well, they do a lot of their stuff in the UK of course, they make their engines in the UK, so well, as Audi say, first of all, the vehicle shown as a concept vehicle that is not available as a production model. And then Mercedes tweet this out of George Russell going up Radion, kind of saying the same thing, blowing a kiss the way of Audi, right? Kind of trying to clap back to some degree from this statement where Audi said in their kind of press release, this is the first time in more than a decade that a Formula 1 powertrain will be built in Germany. Kind of saying, look, Mercedes, you say you're all, you know, German and stuff like this, but you don't make the powertrain in Germany. So Audi are kind of say, okay, we're going to be the real German team. It's kind of exciting, and yeah, like, that's quite a way down the line. The other factor, of course, for consideration here, though, is where Audi are going to be, because like it's expected they partner with Sauber, currently Alfa Romeo branded, but they haven't yet confirmed this. Actually, they've just said they're talking to different teams, even though it's pretty obvious where they want to go, it seems. Now, of course, this means, you know, for Alfa Romeo, they're obviously not particularly happy with this, right? Because they like this partnership, and whether Alfa go elsewhere, because, you know, Alfa Romeo, legendary brand, especially a motorsport, it would be a shame to see them gone from Formula 1. But I mean, yeah, obviously if Audi go to Sauber and actually buy out a large percentage of that company, then where does Alfa Romeo go? There is maybe some talk about, you know, could they go to Haas or something, like, you know, potentially a target or potentially an alternative to Sauber to kind of brand them up. It's a bit of an interesting one, but yes, they haven't yet confirmed Audi where they're going to go. But, you know, Alfa Romeo have very quickly said actually after this announcement that they will end their partnership at the end of 2023. So maybe 2024, 2025, that's the bridge into the full Audi branding, despite the fact that their engines will only be used from 2026. It's a kind of an interesting option, right? And even people have been saying that this is kind of sour grapes and kindergarten behavior from Alfa Romeo, like, you know, pulling out and immediately announcing their withdrawal after the Audi deal goes through. But maybe Alfa Romeo can stay in some form or another, but it would require them to brand another team, maybe a Haas or something, as is described here by Adam Cooper. Let's dive into these grid penalties then, because this is a massive deal for this weekend. We heard the rumours a couple of days ago now that Charles Leclerc may well take a penalty, and with that coming into effect, I did wonder whether Verstappen, they would decide to leave him, like, well, out for this race, out of the front of the grid, so that he can lock up some points guaranteed if his engine doesn't explode or whatever, right, which you wouldn't expect it to, but, you know, lock up some guaranteed points, put the championship well and truly away, even though realistically it already is with an 80-point lead, and then maybe Verstappen would take his penalty in Monza, and maybe they were thinking, look, can we really afford to use what we currently have in the pool here for Spa and then Zandvoort, because of course they don't want to take a penalty next weekend in Max's home race, so they would either do it here or Monza. Now, what might happen here is that Verstappen and Leclerc take their penalties here in Spa, and then Sainz and Perez take them, let's just say, in a couple of weeks' time in Monza. That's an option, but then again, I'm sure both Ferraris want to be at the front of the grid for the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, so I suppose we'll see about that one. on. But yeah, rumours were circulating that both Verstappen and Leclerc could be among them. Now, of course, as of now, not all of the actual kind of components that they will take have been confirmed. Some of them have, but it's very clear that all of these drivers will take penalties over 15 places in the grid penalty. Like, look, you take a new XYZ, you're going to go back 10 plus 5 places. Once you get to 15 or more places, then it's like, okay, look, you're at the back of the grid and you're all kind of treated the same at that point, at which point qualifying position still comes into play, which is a pretty big deal because usually what we see, for example, Sainz, right, back at the French Grand Prix, he had a penalty, so he was going to start from the back of the grid, but he still went out into Q3 to try and out-qualify whoever else was at the back. I don't know if it was Bottas or Zhou or someone, but he tried to out-qualify someone just to make sure he would start 19th instead of 20th, but he really didn't have much else purpose being in Q3, so he just gave, Leclerc the tow, or at least tried to get him into pole position. Now, of course, in this situation, it's rather different, because if all 6 of these drivers are at the back of the grid, they have an incentive to go out in qualifying and do as well as they possibly can, so that, let's just say, these are the 6 drivers: Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Ocon, Schumacher, and Bottas, as we understand it. So a fair few Ferrari power units in here with Schumacher, Leclerc, and Bottas. We already knew that Schumacher and Leclerc were more than likely going to the back, but Norris as well, of course, from McLaren, Ocon from Alpine, Bottas from Alfa Romeo, and then Verstappen as well. So there's an incentive here for especially Verstappen and Leclerc to go out and do their best in qualifying, because like at whatever order these guys qualify in determines where they start at the back of the grid. So Verstappen, if he qualifies on pole tomorrow, could technically be P15, despite the fact that he's actually starting technically from the back of the grid, which isn't too bad. And given the fact that he only won the race last time out from P10, and also of course that was Hungary, where traditionally it's been more difficult to overtake than a circuit like Spa, like especially with the straight line speed that the Red Bull has, like you can see Verstappen having a very competitive race if he's starting from 15th on the grid, as he may well be based on this situation, right? And who knows, if there's a conveniently timed safety car, then why isn't the win on the cards yet again? So our understanding is, as of now, as of what's happened today in practice 1 and practice 2, is that Charles Leclerc has taken a new battery unit, a new battery Evo, and a new MG UK on board, and tomorrow he'll mount the rest of the PU elements. So as of now, there's effectively like a 15 place penalty, or maybe a 25 place penalty with now a new full gearbox added as well. But once you get to 25 place grid penalty, you might as well just take new everything and just guarantee you start at the back of the grid, but at least have everything new into your rotation that you could potentially use. Verstappen is doing the same thing, and they're both now confirmed to be starting at the back of the grid, as with Mick Schumacher, Guanyu Zhou, Norris, and Ocon, of course. Actually interesting, because that previous list I said had Bottas there, and now we've got Zhou there as well, so maybe it's happening to both Alphas, in which case Verstappen or Leclerc could start even further up the grid. So regardless of the situation, however many drivers start at the back, it's pretty much seemingly the best time for these guys to take the penalty, because if everyone's taking the penalty, then they can actually start relatively far forward. And maybe actually Zhou is missing from the list. So yes, I think it is the 6 we mentioned before, and it's not going to be Zhou. They're going to leave him for a bit, but it's Bottas that's going to take the back of the grid start here in Spa. So it gets a bit complicated, but the fact of the matter is that both Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc will be trying to charge through the field. That's obviously an incredibly exciting prospect for what the race could be here on Sunday, but also it does matter, right, in qualifying tomorrow where they place. If Leclerc can out-qualify Verstappen, then that does give him an edge, because, look, he can hold up Verstappen theoretically. They might even have a bit of a battle between themselves for, P15, P14, and then that could hold up their progression through the grid for one of the guys that's a bit further behind. So, and that's the thing, like, let's say Verstappen starts ahead, he gets a few cars in front of him, Leclerc gets held back a bit, then, like, his progress is very much limited, and Verstappen could be away and gone by the time that Leclerc gets free of the traffic. It's an interesting question, but it makes for an exciting race prospect, there's no doubt. So, as it presently stands, Energy Store, MG UK, plus the new gearbox we saw, but he will go to the back of the grid. And what that means is effectively that if you don't take a grid penalty all the way to the back, then after the qualifying order is determined, they then apply those penalties. But for those that are going to be at the back guaranteed over a 15 place penalty, as it will be for these guys, they just are ordered in qualifying position, right? So there's a good incentive for these guys to go out on track and try and get some good laps in tomorrow. One thing that might help, although practice didn't look so good for them, especially in practice 2, is what has been confirmed as a new lower downforce rear wing and beam wing for the Ferrari. So, interesting looking design. We have seen a lot of teams actually go down the route this weekend of bringing new rear wings, like actually very low profile rear wings with very limited downforce at all. Obviously, critical to overtaking around here is to try and get a good run down the Kemmel Straight. You want the lowest downforce possible, but there are a lot of high speed corners around this circuit where you need, decent downforce levels at the very least. If you can run your car low to the ground and therefore extract a lot from the ground effects that generates downforce, then maybe you can get away with lower rear wing, as it seems that teams are still confident they can do. So we shall see. Of course, the straight line speed differences are pretty significant between, like, look, Williams just can't generate any downforce anyway on their car, so they decide just to, completely eliminate downforce, and I'm pretty sure Albon had the fastest sector 1 in FP1 because, I mean, look, it's just straight lines, and they're rather quick round there, Williams, but Ferrari are looking to be not too far behind, and these will be crucial features if they want to actually make their way through the pack. The funny thing is that we will talk about practice later today and some of the reaction from the Mercedes camp because they brought a fair few upgrades, didn't look so good though out on track. It was actually after FP2, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin that was the fastest car on the circuit to not be taking a penalty. It ended up actually in FP2 being Verstappen, Leclerc, and then Lando, Norris, all three drivers that will be starting from the back of the grid, and then Lance Stroll was the quickest man out there without a grid penalty. So yeah, Stroll for pole, I suppose we'll see about that. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.